So we'll probably have a couple other peeps hop in here because a couple people told me they're heading in, but you know how the internet goes these days. Awesome. So kind of review from last week. What were we looking at? We were talking about some different breakdown of tribal dynamics. Anybody remember any of those pieces we were talking about as far as like how applicable they are? Um, you know what? Just open-ended. What do you guys remember from last week?
Then we left off on the Guardian.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so
Yeah.
what was some of the tenets of that? Do you remember?
I think it was like somebody that's like willing to like kind of like sacrifice himself for a cause or like a belief that he was supporting.
Yeah, pretty accurate, man. And
Yeah.
so, the apex version of that is Christ. Like if you think about it for a minute, you know, for whatever reason, like through time, people they take Jesus and they like turn him into something he's not. And like they make him that he probably is just walking around and being like, I don't want to sin. I don't want to have a wife. Like I just want to walk around and be a nice guy and say nice things. But if you actually read the Bible, like none of that. And in that, you got a guy who is on the daily doing what he doesn't want to do for a cause that he believes in, right? Like an obedience that he believes in. Because the Bible as well says that basically he was brought on high because of his obedience. Well, you don't have obedience to something you want to do. Like principally, I mean, at times I'm sure you can. We'll just call it discipline, but generally discipline is being obedient to a value that you have when there's an opposing emotion, right? So it's like if I know I'm supposed to be disciplined and go to the gym, that it's not discipline when I want to go. It's just motivation. It's discipline when I don't want to go, right? So discipline is like being obedient to what I don't want to do, right? And you can have competing feelings, all of us do, you know what I mean? Where it's like you had an argument with your wife, and like on one side, you're like, I feel like going wrecked havoc and repairing sheetrock walls in a day from now, right? But on the other side is, man, I saw this reel that talked about this lady's like, I feel so safe. My boyfriend protects me from sheetrock all the time. And it's like, that's a savage joke. At least everybody at one point has repaired a piece of sheetrock for a sense of anger there. And if not, hats off to you. I have, right? Whether a door that you put through it, a punch, don't hit a stud, make sure you know where they're at. You know what I mean? But in any case, there's one side of you that wants to have this outburst of anger, and the other side that's like, hey, this is a softer creature. I need to figure out how to get through this with somebody who does not process in any way, shape, or form the way that I do. And you're going to have these competing values. And when you do what you really believe that you should at the highest value, and you look back in hindsight, well, that was discipline, that was obedience to the value that was greater. And we see that in Christ. Like he had the exact same man emotions that we have, same drive, same lust, same tendencies, and he chooses to be obedient to what God asked him to do for the entirety of his life and is murdered for it. Like that is the apex guardian. Like anything that, you'll see otherwise that where somebody does something great, it's incredible, it's impressive, but there's a higher want there, there's a desire to do what you truly believe. And in Christ, it's like it is the example. We see this in almost every movie that we really love. It has a messianic figure, right? So when you look at Braveheart, there's a messianic figure. When you look at the Avengers, there's messianic figures. When you look at Avatar, there's messianic figures. When you look at Star Wars, there's a messianic figure. It's like over and over and over again, there is this understanding that somebody willing to die for what they believe to be the best outcome is such an admirable thing that it inherently has leadership built into it. Like people can be on board with somebody that believes something at a level that they're willing to die for it. And so that's generally why these things turn into a tribe of leaders, right? Hold on, I'm trying to let Joe in. All right, perfect. He made it. And so, one of the things I really want to caution everybody before we continue on this is giving yourself an identity that's not accurate, right? And so, I'll say this. You guys have seen Troy? Everybody's seen Troy? Okay. Well, what I want you to really conceptualize right now before we continue is that my general premise of thought truly is everybody that comes to the uncommon tribe and all of the people that I get along with in life are naturally mercenaries, but in sub tribes, you'll have to fall into different roles that you have the strength to fill the best. And so as I get further, you'll know what a mercenary is. But if you think about this like on a map study, so when you're deciding to do, take an objective somewhere, you're gonna like one of the very first things that happens is, I'll give you guys a quick understanding of military planning. Basically, a commander's intent comes down, right? It's like, here's a mission, and with that mission, here's what we're intending to happen with that mission. That has your commander's intent, and it has your warno, and in that there'll be a situation. The execution is what you're called to do, and then you'll have your command and signal, so you know kind of what your hire is. You'll have certain logistics already laid out, but there's a desired outcome, and that's going to be predicated based upon this higher intent, right? And so one of the first things that you're doing is you're deciding how can this movement happen, right? So let's say that we're going to go assault a building. Okay, what do you think you guys need to know information wise before we go into this building? We'll just say this is a build. Let's see, everybody's probably not familiar with the same areas because we're in different places. Let's say that, I mean, you're gonna assault the Pentagon, right? That might get us NSA on here. Let's say you're gonna assault the Coca-Cola Company factory in Atlanta. All right. What do you want to know before you get there? Give me some examples. What do you want to know?
Where are the points of entry?
Yep, points of entry, right? What else, Nate?
And my first thought would probably be what team am I rolling with? And that might be outside of the scope of what you're asking, but like what are
No,
the
no,
strengths,
that's
what are
fine.
the weaknesses of the guys that are, that I'm working with?
Exactly. Yep. So you want to know different dispositions. You want to know different capabilities. How many of these guys are medics, or any of these guys breachers? Who can handle different capacity? How many of these guys are communicators? Like who has different satcom capability? All those types of things. Pace plan, right? So what's our primary means of communication? What's our alternate means of communication? What's our contingency means of communication? What's our emergency means of communication? These are all the things that you're thinking about. You want to know your team's disposition. You want to know, as Alex said, Alex, what did you say again? You want to know what about that building?
How are we going to get inside? What are the points of entry?
Okay, points of entry. Once you get inside, what do you want to know?
Opposition force numbers.
Yep, you want to know the op four, which is like, what are the bad guys in the area, right? What else do you want to know? What you got, Chef?
Oh, that's what I was going to say. How many people are inside and what sort of defenses do they have inside?
For sure. What else? If you guys run out of answers, don't worry. Got a lifetime to give you some shit here. What you got, John?
Do we have anybody on the inside?
Perfect. What assets do you have on the inside, right? And what the assets on the inside are going to help provide what?
Sorry.
Information about the inside.
Yeah, it's going to let you know intel, right? You want to understand what again, what is the composition? What's the disposition? What's the most likely course of action? What's the most deadliest course of action of the players inside? Do we have the ability to set up some kind of surprise ambush with that person there? You want to know all these things. But here's what you're going to start with. What you got, Hank?
Sorry, it took me a second to hit the mute button. Why
It
are we
does.
actually doing whatever we're doing? Like, why are we
Exactly.
assaulting this place?
Exactly. What's the intent here, right? Did you have something?
Yeah, I was saying like kind of same lines, non-negotiables, like what's our end goal and then what's going to be the factors that break that and say, all right, we're red light and we're getting out of here.
That's right. And in military planning, they call that prescriptive and prohibitive, right? So here's the prescriptive objectives. These things need to happen. And here's the prohibitive objectives, more or less. You know, there's another way to say it, but it is these things compromise the mission, and these things have to get done for the mission to be accomplished, right? So let's say that there's a singular bad guy in there, and prescriptive is it's low vis, nobody needs to know you were there. You need to be able to execute what you got. You got to get this guy, tag him, you got to put something on him, you got to get positive identification, you got to kill this guy, whatever it is. Those are the prescriptive things. The prohibitive are getting caught, being known that you're there, leaving a trace, breadcrumbs, causing a bigger controversy. Like there's a bunch of things that will say wins and losses there. And those are all based inside of kind of the intent. But the first thing you're going to do before you do anything, because all of those are what you call actions on the objective, before you do any of that, you're going to start doing map studies. You're going to figure out what are the routes into this place? What are the routes out of this place? Big picture wise outside of that, how do we approach this objective? What is the things that we're going to run into? What are, you know, the pattern of life, time of day? How does that change? What does traffic look like? What looks normal in this area? What doesn't look normal in this area? That's going to be your macro view reconnaissance of that objective. And in society, most of us, from the macro view, before we ever get to that building, are natural mercenaries. We're seeing what's happening with the culture, and we say, I'm not like that. I'm not the same as what is status quo here. I am in no way, shape the same as the rest of the herd here. And so you naturally have this mercenary like, and when I get to the mercenary, it'll make sense, but you have this mercenary like approach to this macro view of life. And then the next thing you're looking at once you get to the building is the micro. And inside the building is what are the floor plans look like? What are the escape routes? What are the choke points inside of this building? If I were going to kill me coming in the building, where would I set that up at? If I wanted to trap me in the building, where would I set that up at? Later, Mark, if I were thinking through these things, how would I inside the building run this objective? And that's your micro view of the objective. And in the micro view, this is where we get to sub tribes outside of this cultural tribe. So culturally, generally the only people that are going to come and be part of something that says uncommon or mercenary like in the macro view. And once we get to the micro view of stuff, this is where, and I asked you guys if you saw the movie Troy, the Myrmidons, Achilles' crew there with the Myrmidons is a perfect example of an entire boat full of guys that are mercenaries in the macro sense. They're not a part of the normal society. But then when they get down to the boat, in order for that tribe to be effective, they have to run different roles that they're naturally better at when they're in a tribe they trust, right? And so, in most of your life, you're probably very much like a mercenary in the culture. And the problem is that when we go through the sociosexual hierarchy, you can look at what's happening in the micro and apply that to who you think you are. And then when you go into the macro world, you'll think that you're supposed to interact the same as you do on a tight knit team that trust each other. Does that make sense? Everybody's kind of tracking. And so, like, Hank is in the unit with me. Hank and I in the culture are virtually identical. And inside of the unit, we have to run different roles. And inside of different teams, we run different roles. And on the objective, we run different roles. Like Hank is a black belt, a legit black belt. And Hank, what do you weigh?
I'm about 245 now.
Yeah, 245. That's a lot of dude to be a black belt as well. So if we get on an objective and there's somebody acting some kind of way, I know how to fight, right? I'm good at fighting. Hank is still going to be more prepared than me for whatever that situation is because he has a higher level of technical proficiency and he's literally like 60 pounds bigger than me. That goes for a lot, right? So in that role, it doesn't matter if I'm good at it. Hank is better. So a sub tribe has to see those things and accomplish those things in a sub tribe in a way that lets the execution be better, right? And so as I go through this different hierarchy here, and it's hierarchy is honestly a shitty word for it, but as I go through these different roles and responsibilities, I want you to distinguish the difference between a sub tribe that is operating from a level of trust and what your daily experience is going to be like and your different experience of in your marriage because that's your smallest sub tribe, like that's your most intimate, most trusted tribe is you and your wife, and then you're going to have some kids if you don't have them yet. And here's the deal, they're not part of the same tribe as you and your wife. That's your next tribe. Like most people like prioritize their kids without prioritizing the interaction they're supposed to have with their wife. And that's the same thing as the Myrmidons in this case, thinking that they're supposed to be the same as the rest of the tribe. They're there to serve the entire army, but they have to start with their small tribe to accomplish that. And so the same thing is true that when we're looking at these roles and responsibilities, what man would not die for his wife? Can we all agree that if like it's a Batman situation and you're in an alleyway and you're what's Bruce's dad's name, John? Thomas. You're Thomas. John knows some shit when it comes to movies. Schiff knows some shit too. But if you're Thomas Wayne and you're in the alleyway and somebody's trying to rob you and has a gun to you and your wife, everybody here is going to be a guardian for your wife. That's like, and if not, guys, it's time to go do some self-searching, okay? It's time to go be like, you know what, maybe I should die for her. I mean, that is what the Bible says, is that we are to be to our wife as Christ is to the church, and Christ dies for the church. We should be willing to die for our wives more regularly, and that starts with standards. And so what a guardian does, in my opinion, is he casts a vision and enforces standards for the vision. Like that is it in a nutshell. So like what does he do well? Well, I'll play you guys a video and show you. Actually, I'll show you on the backside after we run through the rest of this. But he cast a vision, and it's his job to hold the tribe to a standard. That's it. That is the role. How that tribe accomplishes that often then comes down to the knight, right? And so it's like if a king's going out to war, is he fighting all of this battle by himself? No, he's casting a vision and telling the knights what standard he expects. And the knights are generally doing a lot of the big lifting there. In your marriage with your kids, your wife is generally the knight that should be following the standard and vision that you cast. And her job is going to be a heavier lift in your tribe than yours will be generally. My wife does more for my kids than I do. What I do is hold a vision for my kids and a standard. And when it comes time to institute that standard, even if the knight doesn't agree, that's my job, is to hold the tribe to a standard, right? As we press out from there, you're going to find that we have these other characters in this role and responsibility, and each one of those are absolutely pivotal to the success. And so, in this tribe, when you guys come on Saturday, obviously I'm sitting in the guardian spot here, casting vision and leading standard. But most of the shit that we get done outside of this, Cameron is doing a giant amount for, Bill's doing a giant amount for. So it's like we don't even have the ability to meet here on Saturday without the sub tribe doing its roles and responsibilities. When Cameron goes to work, Cameron owns he owns a barbershop and he owns a school that teaches Barbary. In the school, Cameron's job is to be a guardian in the school. So it depends on what job and tribe you're currently in as to what your role and responsibility is. But more than anything, I would encourage you guys to all realize that you're probably all in a macro view mercenaries, and you'll see that as we press forward. All right. Any questions or thoughts? Also, Bill he bought a house and he's moving. Hold on, I'm trying to plug something in there. He bought a house and he's moving. So we were going to do this sick ass competition that I told you guys we were going to do, but we actually have to press it to next week because Bill's going to kill me if I do it before. But the way this is going to work, we're going to try to get it, make sure you're here next week, is it's going to be pretty neat. We're going to have some different problem sets that we're going to solve through. If you think like escape room in problems, that's kind of the way that this is going to go down. So we're going to break into some sub teams and work on some stuff, and it'll be super challenging, and it'll be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then we're also going to have a couple other stuff. So show up, you're going to kick ass. It's going to be a lot of fun, and whoever wins, we're going to get you guys some sick swag. So I mean, if you just like losing, then I guess you don't have to come. But if you want to come and win, you know where to find it. All right, so. Let me pull this up. Any thoughts or questions while I'm doing that?
So
Anybody
just
else?
I do have a question, Jay.
Yeah.
Like just as an overview, what are the different dispositions? Are you about to do that right now?
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do now. Yeah, good question. Does anybody else have a Mac computer?
Yeah.
Like, when you hit on your Finder, which is basically like to look at all your stuff, every now and then, on its own whim, my computer will like take the spot that is the desktop and just disappear it. So then, like, whenever I'm going to look and I want to click on something
Does that too. I can do
desktop,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah,
there.
ours does that too.
Your desktop has like 4 different desktops, I think. So if you can try and like slide, I don't know if yours is like a trackpad, but if you can do like ours is 4 fingers, you go slide it to one side and it'll make your whole desktop go like over.
No, I understand what you're saying. That
That's
makes
not
sense.
what you mean?
No, it's like on the left side of the screen where it says like what your folders are
Uh-huh.
on the Finder, it just disappears. So then I go to pull something up and it's not there. So that's always fun. All right, perfect. I got it now. Little search. Perfect. All right, so knights, key to success, renowned for their exceptional intellect. Knights are often misconstrued as guardians, yet they willingly serve. And remember, we talked about this. This is fractal based upon the sub tribe that you're sitting with at the moment. This is not prescriptive of your big identity. This is the role you're playing. And so these things are not who you are. This is the role in that tribe. Um, People that do well in that role generally have these characteristics. It says the knight, deeply committed to the guardian's vision, employs high intelligence, strong will, commanding presence, and competence to bring that vision to fruition. While capable of assuming the role of a guardian when necessary, they may not feel entirely at ease in that position. Knights bask in the privilege and respect those who would willingly follow them, should they find themselves reluctantly thrust in the guardian position. A defining trait of a genuine knight is their lack of desire to usurp the guardian. That's really important, and we'll talk about why that is in a little bit. But like a really good knight on a team isn't jockeying to take a higher position. They are looking to take the intent, and the intent is the most important part because, like, if you're on a team and you're constantly disgruntled based upon who's in charge, even if they suck, you're missing the boat about what is the intent here. And if the intent, even if the leader sucks, is a righteous intent, is something that you should probably be a part of. And if the intent is not, then it's time to leave the tribe. It's time to go do something else with your life, right? The crucial distinction will prove significant later on. Knights act as a force multiplier into a guardian's vision, and the guardian who carefully selects a group of dedicated knights stands a high chance of realizing their vision. As you see, in the absence of a strong team, you just got one idiot alone on an island, right? So, what are some examples? Rather, keys to success, right? So, we won't take 5 minutes to think about 2 to 3, but we'll just throw it out real quick. You guys can cheat and see what it says on the left side of my screen. I gotta hide it. Cheaters. What do you guys think? If we think about some night positions, what you got, Slater?
Would you say like Chewbacca would be one?
Yeah, Chewbacca might be a blacksmith, but on that ship, he is definitely a knight. And that's a good example. So like when the crew goes from Han Solo and Chewbacca, Chewbacca's a knight. When the crew goes to a much bigger tribe, Chewbacca ends up being a blacksmith because his technical proficiency at wrecking people is so great that he just stays in the role of wrecking people as opposed to needing to give that back up to Han Solo, right? What you got, Alex?
I was thinking like the three mighty men to David, or like
For sure.
the 30 in regards to the three, like they have to obey the order. They have to do their best.
Yeah. There's a great example from the three. If you guys haven't read this, and I think it's Second Samuel, it might be First Samuel, but it could be Chronicles too, but I think it's First or Second Samuel. It's either First, Second Samuel or First, Second Chronicles. You guys can look it up. But there's a time where like David's super thirsty and he's like, oh, what I would give to have a drink out of, the Freeport Lake. It's not the name of the lake, but it's a stream. And what happens is, without telling David, his three go sneak behind enemy lines where this area is contained. They do a deep leader's recon. They get a hold of this water. They bring it all the way back to him. And then they hand him the water. And he takes the water and he pours the water out. And they're like, whoa, I didn't necessarily expect that. And he says, you know, far be it from me that I drink the water that you guys put your life on the line for when we're here in this situation. And so two things happen there is like you might think, oh, I bet those guys were displeased. When in reality, they got to see that their guardian wasn't about self-intent. He had a desire for that water, but he did not have a desire to compromise his men to get it. And so he sets precedent with them that even though you love me enough to go do that, I love you too much to allow you to think that that's what I want, right? And it's a pretty wild dynamic that happens there. But yes, spot on with that. One of these guys, his cousin, who's not one of the three, who is probably a warlock, but acts really well as a knight, is Joab. And Joab is like the one that kills his son when his son tries to usurp him. And it's like perfect example of somebody that's going to get the job done in spite of what the guardian wants from them. And so that's some of the thing too, is like there's a higher intent that they're operating off of. What else, knights that maybe stand out? What you got, Shiv?
The Irish guy in Braveheart.
Yeah, yeah. That dude, he looks like a knight. He might be a mercenary. Yeah, that's a good one. And again, this is remember, we're talking roles and responsibilities. Like later in the movie, William is like at a point where his confidence has definitely dwindled, right? Like he's Like, am I doing the right thing? And in that moment, the Irish guy, it's my island, right? That guy does the quintessential thing that a knight. I saw I froze for a minute, so I stopped speaking. And he builds up the insecurities into confidence that William has to go get the job done, right? Like if you go back and watch the movie. And so spot on in that moment, that is exactly what that guy does at an apex level. When he first gets there, he's for sure a mercenary. Um, and that's just it. It's what needs to get done here. And the confident man can fall into any of these roles based upon what the tribe needs. And so, again, that's why I try to remind us that this is not your identity. This is the need of the tribe that somebody's serving. Some people have different dispositions to more naturally be able to do certain roles based upon that. But that's a great example of a fractal nature of the role and responsibility. What else you guys got? Then I'll click to the next slide and show you.
Balian and Kingdom of Heaven.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah,
knight who's forced to become a guardian, actually.
bingo, bingo. Yep. And he, like most of us here, he, it's interesting. He was living as a blacksmith, became a mercenary, went to a knight, and then became a guardian, right? Like I just started watching that movie for the first time ever, Joe, like a week ago. A friend of mine sent me the clip where he goes in and talks to the leper king for the first time, and there was a certain point in there that he wanted to show me, and I was like, "How have I not seen this?" So I just watched it. Yeah, that's a spot on, exactly like we're talking about. The character of Balian was the same throughout, but the role and responsibility changed based upon it. And often God is going to carve away what you're not to help you see who you are as you go through these different progressions, right? There is one of these characteristics, one of these personality traits that doesn't generally change. And we'll hit that one in a minute. So here you go. Uh, Pop culture examples of knights, right? Han Solo, guardian on a ship, and then generally a knight when Luke is there. The Matrix, right? Everybody loves Morpheus. Morpheus is the archetypical knight in that movie, right? Arthur from Inception, um, the narrator in Fight Club is a knight, right? And so you kind of get to see some of these different things, what's happening there, that internal monologue. Dark Knight Rises, John Blake, another example. By the way, it's interesting that he's both Arthur and he's John Blake in The Dark Knight Rises. So, well, why is that? Because he's probably good, really good in his natural disposition in that role. So when he plays those roles in movies, think about it. You can't have somebody in either of those roles that's trying to, for their own selfish intent, stand out in a way for the sake of standing out. And so what ends up happening is like, I mean, most of the Dark Knight Rises, he's the guardian through the entire sequence until Bruce finally gets back. And then Bruce goes off and pretends to die and hands it off to him. And it's that pathway of leading them through that process. Like he goes to who was in charge when he goes to knock on that was that a commissioner? What is that? The dude from Vision Quest that he knocks on his door who's hiding out. What's his name, John?
Um, fuck, I don't know off the top of my head. Yeah,
You got it. All right, calling the backup ship. Who is it? You're muted. But you
Matthew
look.
Modine.
Talking about Alfred?
Matthew Modine.
Yeah, yeah. What's his character's name? Do you
Oh
know?
shit, I don't know.
You talking about
God.
Alfred?
No,
No.
no, no. He is above Commissioner Gordon,
Oh,
and he's like
like the chief
telling,
of police or something.
yeah, 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 yeah. And Gordon goes to him and he's like, "No, I'm not coming out." And then eventually comes out, but he's trying to hide like a little bitch because his wife is there and he doesn't want to die.
Yeah, in spite of the fact that they already know that Bane has a time bomb here, right? By the way, at while we're on it, Bane. Bane is another Apex Knight, right? So like the entire movie, everyone thinks he's a guardian. The entire movie until the last second where you realize that she's the guardian. And Slade actually said this, kind of blew my mind, but Slade, explain the mask part if you can.
Yeah, so what I was thinking is that I don't think Bane's literally talking about the mask he wears.
For
He,
which part? So they understand the scene.
oh yeah, it's there's two scenes I think of. It's the part where he says like nobody cares about me till I put on the mask. And then the part where he says, I just had it. It doesn't matter who we are. What matters is our plan.
And so
So
what was the mask he was referencing? Was it his physical mask?
yeah, no, I don't think it's his physical mask. I think it's, him taking up the role as like supposed to be the son of Ra's al Ghul.
Exactly. Right. And so, well, remember when she talks to Bruce after she reveals, she said that she basically hated her father for letting her mother experience what she experienced and dying in that prison, and he didn't save her. And she said that she, that, no, sorry, she hated her father because he outcasted Bane, right? So they left the League of Shadows, and she said that she didn't talk to him again or even consider him or the League of Shadows until Bruce killed Ra's al Ghul. And after that is when they re-rose the League of Shadows and started pressing forward. So if Bruce doesn't kill Ra's al Ghul, Bane and her never come and do what they did. And so what's wild is that's exactly it. When he says nobody cared about me until I put on the mask, well, when you watch the movie back, he had on the mask as soon as they escaped the prison because he couldn't breathe very well without it. And so when he said nobody cared about me until I put on the mask, well, he lived for as long as it was for her to be a little child into an adult and have success without starting that plan with the mask. So it's not his actual mask. It is exactly what Slade said. When he told me that, I was like, dang, he's already smarter than me. The mask that he puts on is that Guardian mask, right? And so we get to see some of these different characteristics play out. And so his role through the entire movie was the Guardian role. And at the very end of the movie, he switches roles. So it's his character was the same. And as you see, really Apex Knights are essentially the exact same as a Guardian. He's willing to die for it. All of the disciples, except for one, do the same thing. They're martyred just like Christ. He says, can you drink from the cup in which I drink? And they say, yes. And he says, you surely will, but it's not my place to place you in the tribe the way that I see fit. That's the guardian's job. That's what he says of God before them, right? And so they're asking the same question. Hey, can I be number one in the tribe? Can I be number two? Can I be this? Can I be the best? And he says that's not a desire you should have. Your desire is to drink the cup. That's what you should do. You should serve the intent here and let it play out. All right. Next one we look at are blacksmiths. And this is super important. There is no tribe without blacksmiths, right? Like plain and simple. Blacksmith males are, oh, real quick, interesting on the knights. Between knights and guardians, who do you think women are naturally most attracted to? Any guesses?
I'd say night.
I would lean
Absolutely.
more towards night. Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
More action.
Could be. Generally, guardians are assholes, right? They like the idea of a guardian, but like here's a perfect example. I'll show you one. Watch this. Stand by. Stop share. Share. As soon as I figure out where I put this. All right. Her opening line here is because remember this Point Break, she was with Bodie, but she's not with Bodie. Why? For the same reason we're talking about. Maybe you guys can hear this, hopefully.
Big wave riding for macho assholes with a death wish.
Big wave ridings for macho assholes with a death wish. Who is she talking about?
Bodie.
Yeah, like without a doubt. You see what I'm saying? So it's like her opening line there is the thing that often the Guardian is. Go ahead, Joe.
Guardians always put their goals before anything else. So as a woman, she's bitter because she always comes second to the big wave.
Bingo. Bingo. That's right. What you got, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think I sniff out a little bit of a difference between that nice and kind mentality, where like a guardian's going to be very kind, where I think a knight is a little bit more naturally geared to be nice. And I think in kind of female social interactions, that niceness tool is going to be more important than that strength aspect. And so, like, a knight is somebody she can maybe interact with a little bit more on even playing field.
You know what? I would say that you're really close. And the 1% I would, in a 99% agree and 1% I would adjust is knights aren't nice. They know how to talk to people better, right? So they are better at like, look at an interaction. You have a guardian who's like, we're fucking taking that hill. And somebody's like, well, what about? And he's like, you shut the fuck up. You're on board or you're not. And then he walks off. And now the knight's left with that shit sandwich. And he's like, hey, man, he didn't mean shut the fuck up. What he meant was, can I help you get your shit together? Right? He's not nice. He's bridging gaps. He knows how to talk better. Right? And so generally, a knight can conversate better with people than a guardian can. Not always. And like this, like I had to learn how to talk to people, right? Like I didn't have a natural disposition like Damon, if Damon can still hear on here. Damon was around in 2009. He got to get raw me interacting with people early at the gym.
That real.
Yeah, I had to learn where I didn't have a strength. Damon has always been able to talk to people substantially better than me, like always from day one. It's easier, like generally, yeah, that's right. Yeah, Joe's been around. Joe, you've been around since 2009 too. Were you at the first gym?
Yeah, I was at the Duck.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, I remember like, golly, Joe came in like,
And then yeah,
Sorry.
Joe, were you drunk when you came in the first time?
No, I was stumbling home from the strip and I walked past it and I'm like, man, I want to do that. And so I just walked in like the next day you guys were open, got work.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, them warm-ups were terrible. All right,
Man,
take a look.
man, I like for my memories of you guys, you just always were there. I don't even remember how you got there. Jess remembers all of that stuff because Jess was my night there. She knew how to talk to people. I did not. So it was like I knew the vision of what the gym needed to do, and I knew what people needed, but I didn't know how to talk to anybody. So it was just like, hey, you don't want to be fat, take the fucking croissant out of your hand and stop complaining. Like that was me. And she's like, I don't think that's gonna work long term. Except, she didn't have the ability to talk to me like that. So she'd just be like, you need to stop being a fucking asshole to people. Right. And I'd be like, she used the F-bomb. I should listen. Right. She yeah, Jess for sure was the closer. Yeah, man. Like I just called Jess cancer. Like when somebody came in, they were getting that interaction and they were going to get started. And the way that we did it, Damon and Joe will tell you, and Schiff, I think Schiff had the same experience. He came at that, we were playing Rage Against the Machine at that when those guys got killed on the helo, but basically people would come in and we would make sure I wasn't anywhere near them. She would come in, she would talk to him first. She would, after she like gave him a workout and did all the kind stuff and like helped build him up, she'd go, "Hey, go come say hey to this person real quick." I'd come over and go, "Hey man, how was it?" "All right, good deal. Yeah, all right, we can help you with XYZ." And I went straight into dogmatic, like pragmatic, here's your goals, here's how we'll get there. None of the soft skills at all. And then I would leave, she would sign them up, and then they would come in and I would do, we called it foundations then, but I do building the basics with them and teach them how to be able to move and be safe and all the pragmatic stuff. And so like without Jess, I'm completely screwed, right? And so the same thing's true as like there's no tribe that's going to be successful with 12 guardians playing 12 guardian roles. There's no tribe that's going to be successful with 12 knights. There's no tribes can be successful with 12 blacksmiths and so on and so forth. It's a tribe dynamic that has to happen. And so yeah, like generally women just like knights more naturally, and then every now and then you meet one like Jess, she's like, this guy's an asshole, but there's something going on here. I think I'll hang around and see if I can change him, right? And if they're resilient, then they do change the man, hopefully in a positive way. And then you do the same with her because she is, as Nate said, social dynamics of females are a lot different. She's going to naturally be nice, and you have to teach her how to be an asshole if you want to help her friends. When they come back and they're like, "Yeah, he's this and he's that and he's this," and I'm like, "What'd you say?" She's like, "Well, I just listened." Wrong, wrong, wrong. We're not doing that again. Okay. Can't sit there and listen to somebody spout lies to you for fucking 10 minutes and you not say anything. So, well, I don't think they're a lie. Okay, do you think that everything that she said is in the best interest of her life? No, then that's a lie, right? So that's what dealing with me was like and is at times. So blacksmiths, maybe my favorite guys are blacksmiths because they're just so fucking good at their job. Like it's Blacksmith, pragmatic, mentally well adjusted. They derive genuine pride and self-worth from their work and even more so from their family life. So a good blacksmith is a guy who looks at his job and wants to be the best tactician at his job and is very content with doing hard work, getting a case of beer, going home, hanging out, seeing his family, chilling at his house, right? Like they're just awesome, easy to please in life people. And I don't mean easy to please for you. I mean, they're self-sufficiently easy to please because if they're doing a good job tactically in their job, then they don't really care what you think about them, right? I'll show you guys a couple examples of that here in a second. But blacksmiths are generally good or good-natured, honest, reliable, trustworthy, tactful, and intelligent. While respected in their social circles, unlike guardians and knights who might find family time constrained due to all their consuming visions, blacksmiths prioritize it. This makes them excellent fathers and husbands. Two common downsides of having a guardian at night as a father or husband are infidelity and absenteeism from their family lives. And so this is very accurate that if you have a guardian or a knight that are immature, they will not prioritize their wife and they don't realize that their most important tribe they're destroying. So they think they're doing something that's significant, but they're just screwing their own tribe over in the process. Blacksmiths don't seek dominance like guardians, nor do they position themselves where dominance might be required. All they desire is basic recognition and acknowledgement for their competence and contributions to the community and organization. Unlike guardians and knights, blacksmiths prefer to avoid confrontation. This is pretty characteristic. Um, I find that people avoid confrontation for two main reasons. And so if you find like I avoid confrontation, it doesn't mean you're a blacksmith by nature. There's two main reasons. And one reason is they genuinely do not like the discomfort of confrontation. That's one reason people avoid it. The other reason is they don't know how to handle the confrontation and they're concerned that they're going to blow the situation up or they're going to end up yelling, they'll lose their temper. They're not sure how do I keep this relationship moving forward and address this. It's like somebody that doesn't train jujitsu and there's all of a sudden a fight that's about to happen. One guy is like, I don't like fighting. And one guy is like, I might get my ass kicked because I don't know how to fight. He's not afraid of fighting. He knows that he doesn't have the skill set to deal with the situation. And so both are avoiding the fight, but for different reasons. Some people just generally are like, I legit am a lover, not a fighter. I have no interest in fighting someone. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But if you find like, I don't want to have this conversation, it's probably not a blacksmith characteristic. It's probably you saying to yourself, I'm not sure how I'm going to deal with this. But if you had the tools for it, it would feel different, right? This doesn't mean they are pushovers, but they engage in confrontation only if the situation is dire and other methods have been exhausted. These men are willing to make fair compromises, and arguably the main reason a society thrives or declines due to the majority of men falling into this category. And the reason it's called a blacksmith is like you don't have any swords without these guys. You don't have any buildings. You don't have any infrastructure without people that are good at their job and see that they get a high value from that. So like any movie guesses, sometimes these are harder. What movies stand out for good blacksmiths here? Hank, you're still on the call?
Yeah.
Can you think of a blacksmith in the unit? I'm gonna see who do you think the apex blacksmith is? I want to see if you come to the same answer I come to.
Um, like I was kind of thinking Getler was going to be a
Oh,
knight, but
Geller's a
when
good
you
one.
started
Geller's a
talking
good one.
about blacks,
Yeah, Geller is
it's
a good
tough though, because he's definitely pretty close to a knight. Um, man,
It's by the way,
obviously
that Geller's a
blacksmith.
good example. You guys don't know Gettler. This dude is salt of the earth. He's incredible. In a tribe big enough with other roles that he sees those guys can handle that, he won't play a guardian or knight role. He'll be a blacksmith because he's good at his job. No matter what he does, he's good at it. In a
Yeah,
small four-man fire
he
team,
very much prior.
yep. Oh, we lost him. He's going to
I,
say he very much prioritizes his work and being good at it, and his family. Let's see what we
yeah.
lost you. What were you going to say?
Oh, he very much prioritizes his family. I think that was the biggest thing that really made me uh think again about whether he was in or a blacksmith. So,
Yep. And so watch this. I'll talk you on to the who I think is the apex blacksmith in the unit. You don't know the new guys that just went through selection yet. There's some pretty incredible tacticians there, but who's the best shooter on the team?
uh, probably Casey.
Okay, that's not bad. Who would you say is definitely, and Casey, by the way, is a blacksmith. You're spot on. Who's next?
Um,
It's funny because you can't even think of it because he's so good at his job. He doesn't just like he has he this dude does not care who is in charge as long as somebody that's in charge is competent.
maybe Kyle.
Good guess. Kyle, by the way, is another blacksmith, spot on. Pavel.
Oh, Pavel. Dude, I don't know why he was not coming into my head.
You
Oh
see?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. That
Right?
was.
So you see Hank's
I hang
like
out with him all the time.
response. Yeah, you see him all the time, but it's not on your mind because he literally doesn't talk unless he has to. This dude, without a doubt, if I
Yeah.
had to put somebody into a position and go, I need you to shoot that guy in the head when I tell you, I'm calling this guy 10 out of 10 times. He'd just sit there like this for 3 or 4 days straight. He won't move. He'll skip his meal. Like it don't matter. Like the dude is going to get the job done, like without a doubt. And all he really wants to know is what are we doing? Why are we doing it? How do you want me to do it? That's it, right? Like and the thing is if I had to put somebody in a position to take a shot that I knew needed to be there, I'm not calling me. I'm not calling Mike. I mean, Mike probably would be pretty good, but I'm not calling me. I'm not calling Ken. I'm calling Paul. This guy was Czech Special Forces, incredible, incredible tacticianer. If you don't have those guys, then you don't have the ability to do that. You know what I'm saying? So again, like there is no tribal hierarchy here. If the job is calling for a guy to sit there and piss on himself for 3 days, not eat anything, stay awake until it's time to pull the trigger, that's who you're calling, right? And so um, I have a ton of admiration for guys that are really incredible at their job. So there is no like up or down. Movie examples of this. Oh, should have clicked there. All right. Moneyball, Billy Bean, Stanley Goodspeed from The Rock. Another example, by the way, married the prom queen, right? So again, it's not a nights only game here. Why did she like him so much? John McClane, one of my favorite blacksmiths. Blade, also a blacksmith, probably a knight, could be a mercenary. But you look at John McClane and you're like, he's the star of the movie. He is. Why? Why is he the star? Because he can do the job at an uncommon level. In fact, like he's talking to the black dude. The black dude is like a fallen knight or guardian who like he rises back up through that process. Um, have y'all seen the conspiracy theories on him being the dad from Family Matters? Like the cop is, he had a bad shooting, he lived in another city. Like, dude, it plays in so well. Like that conspiracy theory, if you haven't looked up, I don't remember his name, but Google whatever you got to Google to figure out the backstory on the black cop from Die Hard. It's incredible. Um, the other one is actually Patrick Swayze. Like if they do one on him from when he's driving that 57 Chevy in Dirty Dancing, and Bodie later says his favorite car is a 57 Chevy. And then you see in Roadhouse, they do this progression, this like conspiracy progression from him. He starts in Dirty Dancing. He's outcast from kind of society. He sees the wealth of that. Then he goes on, travels, becomes the Roadhouse guy, and then ultimately like lives on his own and develops a sub tribe through Point Break. But the way they break it down, it's pretty good. It's worth watching. So all classic examples here, really, really good mental focus, really good in intense situations. Like one of the takeaways can be guys like look and they go, oh, well, like, are they less? No, man, they are the most prepared for some of the highest consequences. Like if you have a guy on an engineering team that you want to put together a rocket for you, you don't want the guy who's thinking about how to put the rockets in outer space. You want the guy who's thinking about how does this accelerator need to work? How much fuel needs to go in this? Like, if you think Elon Musk is building rockets, you've lost your fucking mind, right? That dude has a host of Apex blacksmiths. Like the thing where the rocket comes down and it grabs that. That Elon did not do that. What he did was he casted a vision for that. And then he went and found guys that were substantially better than him in every area to make that a reality, right? So again, a tribe needs each other. All right, warlocks. Oh, 802. Good. We'll pick this up next week and do the competition stuff. So what do you guys got? Thoughts, questions, ponderings? What you got, Hank? You you're just trying to figure out something.
I was about to raise my hand, but I'm trying to hit that button. How do we know like what we are? Is there like some kind of way to evaluate this so we can figure this stuff out, or
I would start with responsibility. And so, whatever tribe you're in, the responsibility will drive what you're supposed to be in that tribe. Because again, these aren't your identities. Like, and I say this respectfully, but I genuinely know this is accurate. There's not a guy on our team that is a better medic than me, right? I'm telling you, I'm a fucking apex blacksmith medic. If somebody on our team had something happen, even though I'm in the position I'm in, if something happened to one of our guys that was life, limb, or eyesight, I'm going to come out of whatever role I'm in, hand that off to Mike, Ken, and Ivan, and I'm going to come sit next to the medic and make sure it either happens or augment to make sure that it happens the way that I think it should happen. So the
So it's like
responsibility in
gender.
that
It's
moment,
fluid. That's what you're saying.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
I'm a trans medic.
Hey, Jordan's done that in the middle of class. We've had someone dislocate a shoulder, and he put someone's shoulder back in mid class.
Yeah, Damon's running the class. Damon is the guardian in the class. I was outside on a phone call. I wasn't even supposed to be there. I was like looking at a trailer. I was doing something else. And yeah,
God was kind to me that day.
yeah, Damon comes outside and goes, "Hey man, I think this chick just dislocated her shoulder." And I was like, "Role switch, responsibility switch." I walk inside and I put this chick's shoulder back in place and it was way out. It
Oh
was
yeah.
like
Woo.
it looked like a fucking head on the front of her shoulder,
Ugh.
right? And so in that scenario, I know that I am an apex blacksmith. And when I was going through the school, the way I studied is I knew that when I have to use this task, I want to make sure that I'm better than every man on the planet at this. And I think there's for sure probably medics now that are better than me, but I would have taken my skill set against any man on the planet when I did that job confidently, not cocky. I'm 100% certain. Um, I was at Apex Blacksmith there. And as you progress, go ahead, Alex.
Well, last week you talked about someone asked like, well, how do you know you've become a guardian? And oftentimes, I think Cameron said this. You just kind of you end up taking that role. No, the guardian doesn't have to say he's the guardian. He's just doing the guardian's job because he's the faithful one in that moment. He's earned the respect. He's given the time, and it does. It makes me think of the gyms. It's like of course you were the guardian at the gyms and you've given that, but when you walk into the gym, you're not you don't tell everybody like, hey guys, I'm the guardian. Like, no, the guardianship is now the one who is standing in front of you. But at any moment, it's like to me and you, the respect is like at any moment you're still the guardian if I needed you to be. But it's like the dynamic changes based off the relationship and the community that you're in. So
Absolutely. And so it's very much what does the situation need and what are my capabilities, right? Like Alex could come over and ask me a question where he needs a guardian answer, or Alex can come over and ask me a question where he needs a blacksmith answer. Hey, this person on this squat, this is happening. That's a tactician thing, right? So I'm like, okay, let me see it. Okay, here's what I would do and why, right? And then he could come over and be like, hey, man, I got this lady at the gym. This is what's happening. And it's a different question. So it's a different answer. What you got, Cam?
So for me, one of the easiest ways to recognize what you are is first start by trying to recognize what other people are.
That's right.
So looking around your life, who's playing what role, and you can recognize traits and behaviors and responsibility. And then it becomes a lot easier to recognize where you stand.
That's right. And really important for me is I don't identify as anything. Because if you do, then you're going to not be very flexible. What you need to understand is that the tribe has these roles, no matter the tribe. Every single tribe that is thriving has these roles. Your question is, where do I fit into this? And when is it appropriate? Because, like, you know, Hank, you were there. The way I ended up in the position I'm in was willing to just get fired to because the situation was so ridiculous that I was like, I'm gonna go kick this hornet's nest until I get fired or things change. And then I ended up in the position I'm in. I didn't like start out and say like, you know what, I want to be the commander of this unit. It was just I was willing to I honestly thought I was gonna just get kicked out, but it would work out for everybody else, so it was worth it,
Yeah, but
right?
that's like a big part of like what I was asking. So like how not so much how do I know what I am, but how do we identify other people so that we can put people in the appropriate spot? So like let's say I am the guardian in this situation, right, with my business. How do I
Right.
like I'm trying to figure out how to identify like maybe this person seems like they're sorry, the blacksmith, and but they really should be a knight, right? Like I'm trying to figure out how to best identify where to put people so that when roles need to change, I can be like, okay, this is not my time to be in this position. This person needs to be in that position, you know? So
That-
I guess just like
When
understanding
we
what they mean will help identify that a little more. So
Absolutely. After we cover the warlock and the mercenary, and generally a small tribe doesn't have a peasant, but we'll cover the peasant as well. But after we cover the warlock and the mercenary, it'll make kind of even more sense of how to kind of distinguish that. But, you know, Gettler is a perfect example of in a small team, I make that guy a knight. In the big team of the entire unit, he would not thrive, even if he were the best at his job, he would not thrive in a knight role. And so when you're looking at some of these different interactions, you're asking yourself, okay, what is this guy's natural disposition and where can they thrive? And that's something you're observing these roles and characteristics. Like, for instance, if you have a guy like Paul who's really good at shooting, what often happens is when people are building out teams, they go, okay, well, we'll make Paul the team leader because he's the best at that job. And you're like, okay, if you want it to fail, right? Because this as soon as you put because leadership is a job too. And as soon as you put him with a different job, he's not going to be as good at what his best job is in that role. You see what I mean? And so like that guy's been married for a long time. You know how long he's been married, Hank?
no, I'm not quite sure. I know it's been a while. Well, it might have been like as long as he has been applying for citizenship. I know he was applying for citizenship here for like 25 years, and I'm pretty sure they were married longer than that.
Yeah. Perfect example. Like that guy is clearly a guardian with his family. I've never even seen his wife. I don't know anything about his personal life. And I've had extensive conversations with him, like why? Why don't I know? Is it because I don't care? No, I try to know. It's just the dudes just won't tell you anything. He's like so cryptic, not in a bad way. It's just he is a guardian in his family, first and foremost. And then he's a blacksmith in the world. But he does a bunch of other contracting jobs where he's probably a mercenary all the time, right? And so you're looking for if you're looking for like how do I seat a knight, you're looking for guys that people naturally follow and that guy can hold a standard because that's super, super important. Can he deal with confrontation? And if he's the best tactician but can't deal with confrontation, then you're setting him up for failure, putting him in that spot. And you also, one last thing on confrontation is you have to say, can he deal with confrontation when it's his orders, right? Because a lot of knights are good at saying, this is what the commander wants. This is what the team leader wants. This is what we're going to do. And they're good at confrontation when they're carrying another's message. But when it's them saying, this is what I'm expecting, that's a different thing. So sometimes the way that you flesh that out from a leadership perspective is you ask them, hey, what do you think we should do here? Right? And they go, well, I think that we should go route A. And you go, you do? Yeah. Okay. Go tell them that route B sucks, however you're going to do that. And we're doing route A and see how they deal with it. Right. So at that point, they know it's their thing that they're having to institute. And if they're very apprehensive about that. You give them some different skill set to help, and then they're still kind of apprehensive. You can just tell and you go, hey, do me a favor. I want us to do route A. Go make sure they do that. And then they're like, okay, got it. Well, you just need to realize like Apex Knight, but probably can't sit in a Guardian role. You know what I mean? So there's different ways that you kind of flesh that out. But the best way to do it is try to find somebody that you think is sitting in that role and is doing an Apex job of that. If they're doing an apex job of that, study what characteristics they're doing, and every personality is going to deal with all of these roles slightly different. The only common thing is what is the outcome? The outcome is what you're looking at, and then you back plan and study based upon what you saw. What you got, Cam?
In regards to business, just to add on, I agree with everything you said, but another good thing to do is just communicate with people.
No.
Especially with blacksmiths. Like if you have conversations with them, just ask like what long-term outcomes look like for them, what their goals are. Blacksmiths are straight up going to tell you, like, I just want to do my job well. I just want to work hard. I don't want to be a leader. And you know, like you got a blacksmith on your hands. And knights, in my experience, they will tiptoe around leadership, like they have an ambition towards it, but the knights I've dealt with typically aren't really confident in it, and then you can build them up.
You want to know what, Cam? It's I 100% agree. The reason that they won't tell you that is because they naturally are diabolically opposed to usurpers. And so they don't want to be perceived as a usurper. So they won't want to tell you that they want to be in a certain position, even though they know that they would thrive there. They don't want to be a warlock. And when we get to warlocks, it'll make even more sense. Like guardians and knights are diabolically opposed to warlocks and vice versa. So it's like that's where I find myself whenever I'm in a night role. I like fucking hate warlocks. And so for me, I'm like, I don't want to do anything that makes me perceived as an underminer here, right? And that's the balance that you're running there. And it'll make even more sense next week when we hit it a little bit more. And to Cam's point, warlocks do a really good job of making people think in society that somebody that knows that they intrinsically know I have leadership traits. They do a good job of making that a bad thing. They make people believe that to say, hey, I want some more responsibility here is a bad thing. And so a lot of this is, again, remember, we are mercenaries to society. And when I hit what that looks like, it'll make more sense. But they naturally don't want to be perceived as somebody that is anything like a warlock. Like it's it's Adam and Eve in the garden and Satan. Like that is the difference between the two characteristics. And we'll break it down a little bit more next week. What else you guys got?
Yeah, I think like just to say like about identifying roles too, um, like just figuring out what you're not, like if you're trying to figure out who you are, I mean, I spent my life figuring out who I'm not. So it's like, you know, that's like one place to start, like figure out
Mhm.
what you aren't or what you aren't.
Yep. And different tribes will determine what you are and are not. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And so it depends on the situation. And so again, like that's the thing for me is like I would not call yourself anything. I would say, what can I do based upon the scenarios? Because like I'm probably not, I mean, to be the best shooter on our team, I would have to literally like forego my entire family to probably be that. So that's not me. But if we're gonna hit a house, I can shoot, right? And I am as fucking cool as it gets under pressure. So I know those things about me, but I'm not gonna be the apex blacksmith. But in every other scenario in life, I shoot better than everybody else in the conversation. Besides when you get into a company where the tribe is so good in that area. So I can be an apex blacksmith in 99% of life. And in one area, I probably can't, right? So I would look more towards what you can versus what you can't. What you got, Schiff?
Just that also there can be an evolution there. I
Yeah.
mean, like, when you and I met, I was this one thing and you invested in me and built me into be a
Mhm.
completely different version of myself with some of the same traits. I mean, you have the ability to be multiple things, and if people invest in you and you invest in others, you can help them become the realization of their true potential.
Yep. John and I were talking about this yesterday, but Jesus at one point, it's been my last point, we'll hop off, but he says, I give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth is bound in heaven, and whatever you lose on earth is loosed in heaven. And what I think he's talking about there is that the keys to unlock the chains that people believe based upon the culture that has given them those lies. We can help unlock that in people's lives to let them be free of those chains and see the world for the way it is and the truths for the way they are. And so if I'm never and that process is often a confrontational one. It might not be like Schiff and I yelling at each other, but it's him saying, I really think A, and me going, you sure about that? Right? And a good knight would say that way better than me, right? So I find that there's a lot of knights out there that are really exceptional in potential, but they're bound by chains of culture. And so they think to have this big influence is like a braggadocious thing or an ego thing. And it's like you're created in the image of God. Like that's a powerful statement. Who you are is so much greater than who you are currently operating under. Like I would be pissed if I end up the rest of my life and this is the finished product. There's a lot of chains that still need to come off of who I am. And some things society will hate when they come off and some they will love, right? And so that's the thing is like like a true identity blacksmith doesn't come here like transparent. They don't come here because they don't care about interacting the social dynamics of a tribe. They don't care about the they just are a little bit better at like being a husband easily or being somebody that fits into society that people like because they're just good at their job. You know what I'm saying? And so the um, the people that are moving the puck are the goats of the tribe. Jesus was a goat, right? Like if you don't know tribe or herd dynamics, you have a whole bunch of sheep, and every traditional shepherd has in the sheep quite a few goats. Let's say 1 to 10. Well, why is that? Well, if you put all the sheep inside of a pasture, they don't ever leave the pasture, right? What's that term for animals that basically are like birds are like this? Agrarian, that's not it. There's a word for like they socially follow each other. There's no like singular person in charge. It's like the where the flock goes, they go, right? That is the majority of culture. But the if you send sheep out into a field, they'll just eat all the grass until it's gone, and then they stand there and die, right? The reason you put goats in a flock is because the goats just start walking away. Why? Because they just do, you know, because they're goats, because they just do whatever the fuck they feel like doing. And that moves. There you go. How would you say that? Egalitarian, right? They're egalitarian. Birds are like this too. If you watch a flock of birds, who's in charge? No one, everyone, right? And sheep are just like that. Wherever the flock is, they're going to go. And so men that are naturally goats, which are mercenary in a macro view, are going to push their own limits in the culture around them. And that's why they end up in places like this, because they're looking around and they're like, this damn flock won't move. How do I be the best flock mover here? And you're like, well, you learn to be a goat, right? And as you're walking off, sometimes the shepherd throws rocks at you to get you to go left or right, but he's not telling you to not walk. The poking in of the shepherd's staff is to get the sheep to move. That's not for the goats, right? That's what the sling is for. If you guys want to know why David was so good with a sling, it wasn't just from throwing it at lions and bears. It's because a shepherd in that time, a goat gets up into places. If you've never seen a mountain goat, like they get into places that a shepherd can't go, right? So he's using that sling to throw a rock at their head to not hurt them, and at times maybe hit them, but to get their attention to drive them down the hill back to the flock to push the flock to a different area. That's how all that works, right? And so our job is to catch stones from God and go a different direction, but it's not to just stand there and do nothing. Your job is to push the flock. And so that's why I say, like, don't make your identity anything. Like, God needs to drive you for who you should be. And based upon what that flock is doing, will change what it is you should be doing to best move that flock. Sometimes you're in the back of that flock and you just look like a blacksmith because you're good. And sometimes you're in the front of that flock and you look like a guardian because everybody's just like, where's he going? I don't know. Let's go that way. Right. So it just depends. It just depends. And so I don't if I'm not careful, I adopt an identity outside of the flag of Christ and I'm a guardian. Okay, well, what happens when I go to Tallahassee and I'm just standing there as just another, commander of part of there's 50 other units, like would it be somehow edifying for me to just like go, "Hey guys, I'm in charge?" Absolutely not. I need to know how to wear any clothing that's necessary to get the job done. And that's what you have to be flexible enough to do. We'll break it down some more next week. Some more next week. John, we press out.
Man, dear Jesus, thanks so much for letting us all come here and just talk openly amidst brothers. And just thank you so much for putting that desire in our heart. Thank you so much for just helping us all become, our roles, and like Jordan said, transitional and ever changing. But God, we just thank you. Like you said, you're the best shepherd, you're the good shepherd, and you know exactly where to hit us to get us to go which way. And so we thank you, Lord. Thanks for our families, and we pray for our week. We pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Hey man, last thought I had while you were praying, I'll just assume God gave it to me. Peter starts out as a knight, ends up as a guardian. John, right? The one whom Jesus loved, like young enough, tender enough, close enough that he's like broing out on Jesus. So he looks like probably a blacksmith in that moment. And then what happens later is everybody's martyred. If you look up John's history, John was tarred, he was beaten, he was almost killed multiple times. He was sent out onto an island and then writes the book of John. Like, if that's not a guardian, I don't know what is, right? So it's like there is these transitional nature that's dependent on what is there. There is no I am this. There is what is God calling me to do and what is my capacity. All right, man. Appreciate you, bros. Hank,
Holla.
go shoot some shit, man.
Hank always cleaning a gun or something, man.
Is Hank in his front yard?
I don't
Like,
know.
because
Don't matter
his
where
fucking
Hank
neighbors
is.
are scared the shit out of him.
Hey,
Uh,
I love seeing these five men right here, man. Y'all awesome.
Yeah.
Jeff, bro,
Yeah.
looking good, my guy.
I'll be praying for you today, Alex, man. Crush it.
Thanks, bro. We're
Yeah,
gonna go
dude.
out.
Love
We're
you,
gonna have
brother.
a good time.
Slade, did you tell your buddies beforehand that there's probably going to be some cuss words?
Yeah, it's
Hey,
just me and Isaiah.
What's up,
hey,
Isaiah?
What's up, Isaiah?
nothing much.
That's it. Look at the
Have a good
neck
day,
on that.
man.
Boy, doesn't make me happier than just seeing a thigh for a neck in a child. All right, how we going, Slade? Have fun.
Later,
Bud.
man.
See you. Thank you.